guys, we are here doing the Q&A that I promised a few weeks ago. We had several questions submitted, so we're just going to go through them pretty quickly so that the video is not super duper long.
It's going to be long.
This is my husband Joel.
What's up?
And he's going to be helping me answer the questions. There's some for him, some for me, some for both of us, so it's a nice little mix.
Alright, first question. What was your first thought of each other?
You go first.
First thought, well, it depends. If it's like the first thought, there's a lot of first thoughts. Because it was like when we first met. Or
the way I read it is like the first thought we had when we met in person, but I guess that would make sense.
Or is it like the first thought, like when I think of you now? Like, I don't know.
I think they meant the
In
first
person?
thought we had.
Alright, in person. Alright, so we're going to go with in person. This is not meant ironically, or I don't know, ironically is not the right word, but her hair was really awesome that night, so I was like, wow, that's really awesome hair.
I wish we had a picture of when we had met in person. I was too nervous to get a picture with him, but the first thing I thought was, oh, I'm glad he is as good looking in person as he is in his picture, because you never know. Like,
you don't know.
We had never met in person before, and he flew into Indiana to see me, so my family and I picked him up from the airport, and he was coming down the escalator, and I was like, thank God, he's handsome in person too. So that was my first thought.
That is awesome. Anyways, alright, how old were you when you knew that he was the one? So this is obviously for you. People tell me I'm too young to know. Well, I think it depends.
It depends on the person, but definitely, so I was 19. I was 18 when we started dating. Well, we were talking when I was 18. And then I turned 19.
Right after we got engaged.
Yeah, right after we got engaged.
Pretty young.
I was very young. And I think you have to listen to those voices in your life that, especially if it's your parents. My parents were all for it. And
They thought I was awesome.
yeah. So they knew he was the one too. Like they had that thought in the back of their minds. So, I don't know, you can know at any age, I think, but definitely listen to your parents and those important voices in your life, because sometimes love blinds us to things that could be an issue down the road. So I guess short answer is you can know at any age, but don't, don't disregard those voices in your life.
Yep. What was the first thing you noticed about each other? Go. Time's up. Her hair.
Hold on. Give me a time. I can't remember. I'm trying to think.
Her hair. That was the first thing I noticed.
I'd say his hugs. Okay, so he hugged me the first time. This sounds silly, but he was good looking, so I noticed that. But then, like, his hugs, I remember the first time he gave me one, he squeezed me so tight, I was like, oh. And so I was like, well, that's nice. Painful, but nice.
When you go horseback riding, what do you wear? I wear jeans.
I'm assuming this is for me. Yeah, when I go horseback riding, I always wear a skirt that stretches. So kind of an A-line skirt, and I wear leggings underneath, just in case the skirt comes up.
I wear denim leggings.
Jeggings. No, he does not.
I don't. How long have you been married? We celebrate our 6th anniversary in June.
So 5 years, but almost 6.
Basically. Have you always had long hair? Well, thanks for asking. No. At one point, my hair was actually longer than this.
Oh, I gotta include a picture of that. He had an afro.
I did. I had an afro.
Yes, I've always had long hair. It has grown significantly in the past couple years, but it's always been long.
When did you two first meet, and how long after that did you get married? We first met in person in March of 2011, right? 2012. March of 2012.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then we got married in June of 2013. So I don't know, you can do that math in your head.
We dated 6 months before we got engaged, but then we were engaged for 9 months before we got married.
What is your biggest challenge in your husband-wife relationship, and how do you work through that? You go first.
I'd say the biggest challenge is probably so much time apart. He's gone a lot for work, and it's not, I don't know, like we work through it really well, I think.
Which of the two of you is more emotional? Well, it depends on which emotion. I think we're both equally
Definitely
emotional.
me. I think I'm definitely more emotional.
Probably
I cry
more.
over puppy commercials.
That's true.
Like,
I'm
they
pretty
make me really sad.
I'm pretty sentimental but I'm not like, I don't cry as
Yeah.
much. So, is it difficult traveling for work and raising kids? I've
No,
heard
I
in a
don't-
previous post you were moving. Yeah,
I don't think it's difficult.
not yet.
It's okay.
Not yet. I think it'll get more challenging the older our daughter gets, just because, you know, your friendships are different when you're a teenager and stuff like that. So that's one thing I'm kind of concerned about as a dad,
Yeah.
because we do move, like move, not just like travel, but we move like every 3 years. When y'all were kids, what did you want to be when you grew up? A fighter pilot. That was it. And a cowboy.
I did not have those cool dreams. I wanted to work at Walmart. No offense to anyone that works at Walmart.
It's the largest employer in America.
I really loved cash registers when I was younger, and so anything with buttons and that went beep, I was like, I want to do that.
What do you think about writing your vows? Did you?
Me?
I'll answer the second one. I didn't. We did not.
We didn't.
I think it's cool.
I
not
think it's
very
cool,
creative.
but I think traditional vows, you're saying a commitment in your wedding. Like, you are committing to something. Like, I vow to love you through thick and thin, for better, for worse. And sometimes people don't include those in their written vows. And so I think if you're including a pledge to each other in written vows, it's good. But it almost seems like a cop-out in a way if you're just saying like something sentimental but you're not making a commitment to each other. I don't know. My personal thing, I'm not going to say you shouldn't write your vows. I think it's a good idea if you're pledging to love that person and be committed to them.
It's pretty good. How long were you married before having your daughter? Any preference for number of kids?
We were married for almost 3 years. Like, I got pregnant with her when it was like 2.5 years we'd been married. And we were almost at 3 years before we had her. Because I think we celebrated 3 years when she was like 3 months old or something, right? March, April, May, June.
So 2.5 months old.
Yeah. And preference for kids, I can't really say. Like, I always said I wanted 2, but no until I have 2 and then see how I feel after that.
Do you want more kids? And then someone else said, well, you have any more kids? People were really worried about this.
Yes, we will have more children
Eventually.
eventually when we're ready.
Does your husband think women should have long hair? Does he? Yes, he does.
I don't think he thinks a woman should have long hair as much as it should be she should
Uncut.
have uncut hair.
Correct. Yeah. Are you giving me another niece or nephew? Well, we know who this is from, and it's the same as the other question. So yes, eventually, whenever. What is your favorite thing about each other, and what is your biggest pet peeve? You can go first. Favorite thing. And
I think we
biggest...
named the favorite things earlier.
All right. So what's your biggest pet peeve?
I don't know. Like, I can only think of my biggest pet peeve when I'm annoyed. I'm not annoyed right now, so I can't think of it. I have them. Like, don't get me wrong. We're not a perfect couple with no pet peeves. I'm having a hard time thinking of one right now.
Oh, yeah, I do. My biggest pet peeve is when I have a cup that I set out like I'm gonna reuse, and then she takes it and like puts it in the sink and like puts soap in it or something.
I cannot stand a
It
mess anywhere.
drives me
I can't stand
nuts.
having random cups sitting out, so
I was like, I was gonna use that, you know,
I'm
going
like,
around
well, you
looking for
shouldn't
one.
have laid it down.
I know, that's probably my biggest pet peeve. What is your favorite thing about Hannah? Hannah is just she just has a very good, balanced personality. She's not like, I mean, everybody is different, so I'm not judging people that married bubbly girls. I wasn't big on like bubbly, like, I don't mean energetic, I mean like, you know, I don't like that. I don't like flighty girls. Hannah's very stable. That's one thing I've always appreciated about her. She's just really a trooper, and it takes a lot to commit to the lifestyle that I have, and she signed up for it too, and so she sacrifices a lot and takes it in stride. So that's probably my favorite thing about her. Would you guys rather go out or stay at home for a date night?
I think there's a good mix of both. It just depends on how the day goes. I like going out, but with him working and coming home, sometimes he doesn't want to, so we stay home.
How hard was the transition from being just a couple to being parents? Ooh.
That was pretty difficult.
Yeah.
In the beginning, like the first couple months, because we were sleep deprived, and I was very hormonal. Like, I had a hard time getting back to normal, I guess. Like, I was dealing with postpartum depression, which I really didn't know at the time, and it was hard. Like, we had never had a fight until that time,
Yeah.
and we fought a lot in those first couple months. Just, it was really hard, and the sleep deprivation was the main contributor.
I think that's when we fought the most, was like super late
Yeah.
at night.
Make sure your relationship is strong before you have kids, because thinking that having a child will strengthen your relationship is not the
true.
case. So make sure you're at a good place before you have kids, because it can put a little bit of strain in your relationship. Share one thing that you both have successfully accomplished together as being married.
I mean, we paid off all our debts except our house.
That's true.
That was a pretty big accomplishment.
That was a big deal. What's the one thing you guys don't agree on? Could be about anything.
Where to eat.
Oh, yes. We never agree on
Like,
that.
I know people joke about that being the lifelong marital, like, disagreement, but that is so true. Like, Hannah, that's probably my other pet peeve. It's like, Hannah will say, let's go eat. And we'll get in the car and start driving, and we still don't know where we're going. And we won't know
Because
where
I
we're
want him
going.
to pick. I always want him to pick, so I don't have to pick. But then when he does pick, I'm like, no, I don't want that.
That's literally
So-
how it goes.
That's Lenora blowing a whistle. Oh well, work around it. Where did you guys meet and how?
Physically in the Indianapolis airport in 2012.
But we knew each other. We were talking for a few months before that. So we met through mutual friends, talked for a while. That whistling is driving me crazy. We talked for a while online after our friends introduced us. And then we met at the airport.
What do you guys consider your greatest accomplishment and your biggest struggle? These are deep. Personally, it's probably when we moved, our last move, the first year of that move was probably our biggest struggle, because Lenora was still really little. She was going, suffering postpartum depression. I had some issues at work, so we were just adapting. It was just a really unique situation.
It was a long year.
It was a really long year for us, yeah. Greatest accomplishment, I think we already talked about that. We paid off all our debts. So.
Well, I think our greatest accomplishment outside of anything that we've accumulated is like learning to work together in those hard situations, because like I said, and I'll admit it, I was a terrible mess a couple years ago, just after having Lenora, and I don't know. I commend him for dealing with me during that time, because I wouldn't have wanted to live with me. So I think our greatest accomplishment as a couple was to get through things. I cannot get over this whistling. Our greatest accomplishment together was getting through things like that, those mental struggles.
What is one thing on your marriage bucket list you would like to do or go?
There's a lot.
We want to travel a lot. Someday, when we get the budget and the time, that's like on the bucket list. I want to go to like Machu Picchu and the Great Wall. I want to go to Europe.
Great Wall.
The one in China?
Sorry.
Who picked your daughter's name?
I picked it, but we both agreed on it.
We agreed on it.
Yeah, like we would submit names to each other, and we had to agree on one, and Lenora Lynn was what we picked for her.
Was it hard at first not being around each other when you guys started dating?
It was hard, but I think it was good for us, because I think too much time together, you can kind of close out everybody else in the world when you're with your boyfriend or your girlfriend too much. I think time apart is healthy. Long distance doesn't work for everybody. We
Yeah.
were 18 hours apart, and it worked for us because neither of us are clingy. I wasn't a clingy girlfriend. He wasn't a clingy boyfriend. He didn't constantly need to know what I was doing.
Follow-up question to that. Tips on how to get to know each other when you don't see each other on a normal basis. It's
We
funny
FaceTimed
because
a lot.
FaceTime didn't exist technically. Skype
Ooh, that makes
was
it sound
blocked.
old.
Skype was blocked on the network at school, so we would use Uvu, which is like
It sounds terrible.
another
It's like another version
video
of Skype.
chatting
Yeah.
capability. So we just video chatted a lot.
We did that, and we texted when we could. Like, we pretty much talked throughout the day, like between his classes, like when I wasn't at work, when I was on break at work. And we took that time to find out about each other. Like, hey, what do you like? What do you not like?
So these are both for me, but this is for you, but I guess you can answer it. How does your husband feel about your social media? Is he supportive or kind of bleh?
He was definitely kind of bleh at first. It was hard for me because I felt embarrassed about it almost. Like, well, he thinks it's dumb, so should I think it's dumb? I don't know. And then, like, as it started to grow, I think he saw how important it is, and it can be. Somebody to go take that whistle from her. He's become more supportive, but admittedly at first he made fun of me, and it really
I
bothered
did
me.
not make fun of her. It's just, so if you've ever seen the Instagram husband video, I encourage you to Google it. That's how I felt at first, and I just didn't want to be that guy. And I didn't want Hannah to be obsessed with it.
Oh.
She's done a really, really good job of balancing, you know, our lives, taking care of our daughter and doing that. So it hasn't like detracted from our marriage. That was the biggest thing I was worried about. Yeah. All right, so this one's for me. What is your favorite way Hannah wears her hair, and what is your least favorite? I have two favorites. One is like the big giant kind of down curls, and that's just because that's how she fixed her hair when we first met. And then I like the giant, I'll call it Elsa Ray, that's the best way to describe it. I like that one when it's kind of to the side.
Your least
And then she
favorite?
has like the little like swirlies. No, that's like one. I have two favorites. Least favorite is when she does like her cornrow braids the night before.
No,
when she
when I
does
braid them backwards.
her heatless curls. It's really rough. I gotta be honest. Like the finished product is good, but man, when you see it for the first time, you're just like,
Oh,
wow. I remember when she first was experimenting with it. It changed over time. I kind of got used to it, but I was just so shocked. I'd never seen her hair look that bad before. And so what is it like living together the first 6 months to a year? Many say it's extremely hard.
We didn't think it was hard.
I don't think it was hard. The first couple months were hard because the movers didn't bring our stuff, but that is not really related to us.
We had a lot of picnics on the floor. It was fun.
Yeah. One of them was, what does your husband do for work? I'm in the military. I'm active duty Air Force. So when I say I went to school, I went to the Air Force Academy in Colorado. And that's the reason I travel so much. So when people ask, that's why.
I don't talk about it too frequently, so that's why.
Yeah.
No one knows.
What made you guys fall in love with each other? Her personality. I mean, that's such a cliche answer, but I mean it was just like I wanted somebody that would be committed to me, and when I figured out that's the kind of person she was, and that she wasn't like playing me, frankly, because I think we all have past hurts. I'm not trying to make it melodramatic, but I had some issues with that, and especially given where I was at the time. The Air Force Academy, I couldn't travel. It's tough to find somebody that'll commit to you when you're in that situation. And so when I found that person that I knew would actually commit to me, that just made me really love her a lot. So.
His eyes. He's very loving too. Like they always say, find a guy that treats their mother right and well, and they'll treat you well, and that's very true. He's very sweet to his mother, and he's been very, very sweet to me. I love that the most.
What's some of your advice for building a strong marriage? You give one, I'll give one.
Always be honest. You shouldn't lie to anyone, but lying to your spouse is like the ultimate low. I say be honest, and there's not just one thing. Being honest means communicating too, like telling each other your discomforts, like things that bother you, things that you don't necessarily like or that are taking a toll on you or your relationship. So be honest and communicate.
Along the communicate line, like don't shut down on each other when you are communicating. It's really hard as humans for us to open up and say like, I like this, I do not like this, especially when it's I do not like this, and because you always take it personally. The first instinct is to get defensive. Yeah. And so the biggest thing is like don't get defensive. Take it as like, I hate to say feedback because it's not like
constructive
a business,
criticism,
but it is, yeah. And sometimes it's just that person, especially when you're first getting to know each other. I mean, after a while, you kind of just know that person doesn't like that behavior or whatever. But you have to communicate it, and you can't just shut down. But like, be open to talking through problems. How do you celebrate your anniversary?
We do something different every year. It depends on our circumstance. I remember one of our anniversaries, we were house hunting because we were getting ready to move. So we were staying in a Red Roof Inn, and it was so bad. And we had these big trees.
She picked the hotel.
No, I did not. Never.
Yeah.
That was nasty and scary.
It was like right outside of truck stop.
I felt itchy thinking about it.
That was probably one of our more memorable ones.
That was our 3rd anniversary.
We were just not having a good evening anyways,
Oh, it was
because
so
we
bad.
couldn't decide where to go eat.
Yeah, and Lenora was crying and fussing. It was stressful.
And then this last year we celebrated early. We went to San Diego for like
That was
4
fun.
or 5 days. Let's see. I don't know what this is. What are our ages?
I'm 25.
I'm 29. I just turned 29, so getting over that hill. We're about almost exactly 3.5 years apart, actually. Like almost to the day. So, what are you having another baby? I'm expecting my first. Congratulations on expecting your first baby. It's an awesome experience. I wouldn't trade our daughter or even the experience of having our daughter for anything in the world. But when we're gonna have another baby is just TBD, I guess.
Yeah.
How did you guys decide when it was the right time to have kids? We kind of had this like.
Gonna wait 5 years. That was our plan because we had a lot of stuff we wanted to do. But then it was right when we had been married for 2.5 years. I was like, I really want a baby right now. And like, I don't know. I guess when you feel like you're gonna get baby fever when you first get married because you're like, okay, we want to go on to the next step. We're married. What's the next step? And we experienced that in the beginning, and I was like, you know what? No, because then there's no more time for just us. And so I think the second time I felt that, and we both felt that baby fever feeling, was when we had been married for 2.5 years, and we're like, yeah, like we kind of want a baby right now. So we felt really ready that time, and I'm so glad we waited at least that long because we had 2 years of just us.
What does he do for work? And do you both go to church? I'm in the Air Force, and then we do both go to church together at the same place.
Same church, same kind of church.
You scared to get married so young? This is definitely for you. I don't know. I guess I was kind of young by some people's standards nowadays. It's such a big step to take, especially when young. So I'll let you answer that.
I wasn't scared at all. I was 100% sure. I had no doubts. Like I said, I'd never felt 100% sure about anyone else before. So I dated before that, and I was like, you know what? He was the first one that I was completely certain about everything.
What's your favorite thing about each other that doesn't relate to your faith and something that does? Hannah prays a lot, and her prayer life convicts me, so that's probably my favorite spiritual thing about her. And then what's my favorite thing not related to her faith? She's just very, very steady and committed and even-keeled, and I appreciate that about her.
My favorite spiritual thing about him is he is a really good teacher. Like he'll have like a line of notes and can do an entire lesson off of that, whereas me, I have to have every word typed out. He's a really good teacher of all ages, especially youth, and so I get like all, he's so great when I see him up there teaching kids because he's impressionable and exciting when he teaches, and I really like that. And my favorite thing, I kind of answered it before in the other questions, but like just his thoughtfulness, and he's very sweet, stable, things like that.
Find yourself at a disagreement or in a disagreement. Do you pray and seek guidance?
Yes, for a big ordeal. Like if it's something that could be life-changing for us, we definitely, absolutely pray about it. But usually, like, if it's a disagreement, we tend to handle it right away. So
yeah, I don't think there's been very many disagreements we've had that have been major enough where we needed to like take time out and go. I've asked the Lord for wisdom on what to say, and I've asked Him to keep my mouth shut for me.
Yeah,
a few times.
that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Mouth shut.
How did you handle transitioning to being a submissive wife?
I think the hardest part is when I spend so much time by myself, because we're separate a lot. Like, he was just gone for 6 months. I learned how to live on my own. Like, I did everything my own way because I was the only one there. So as far as, I don't know if submission was a problem for me as much as learning to adapt to the way he does things again. Like, I did things my own way for a while.
Yeah, I always tell people to, I mean, biblically, the Bible says, that's like your role, right? To submit, obey, and our role as husbands is to love our wives as Christ loved the church. A lot of the responsibility is on us as husbands. If you love your wife as Christ loved the church, I mean, you got to think of what all that means. We look at it as like just the word love, right? And so, yes, of course I love my wife, but if you love your wives in the manner that Christ loved us, that means forgiving over and over and over again. That means, exhibiting that patience and long suffering that Christ did. And so if your husband is living up to his end of the bargain, then the transition is easier. Was it hard to find a good, amazing...
That's
no.
not
Was it hard to find a good, godly man in your generation?
No, I don't think so. Unless you're looking in the wrong places. I don't think it was hard because there were godly guys around me. They just weren't right for me.
Best advice for married couples with a toddler. Oh man, we're living this right now.
Enjoy each other while you can, when you can, because you're not going to have long moments of like...
Peace.
Yeah.
Silence.
We just finally got Lenora onto a schedule. That way we can have the evenings together, because it was her all day long. She doesn't take naps. She stopped taking naps right when she turned 2. So all day she was running around, and then in the evenings she was angry because she was tired but refused to sleep, and she would still go to bed at 10 o'clock at night. So we never had just us time. So I say get your kids on a schedule if you can. Wake them up super early in the morning so that they're tired at night and ready to go to bed at an early time, so that you have time together. Make time for each other. Get a babysitter. Date night is important. What do you have to say about it?
I mean, I echo all of those comments.
Okay.
How do you handle difficult times in your marriage? Times with each other, which I think we've covered already, but difficult times in life. You know, we pray, we seek godly
And
counsel.
fight it out.
And fight it out, yeah.
When we talk about it, pray about it. Sometimes you have to walk away and not handle it in the heat of the moment. Sometimes you do have to walk away, but don't go to bed angry at each other. That's the biggest thing for me. I always took that scripture, don't let the sun go down on your wrath, so literal, because like you don't know if you'll have the next morning. Something could happen. You never want to live with the guilt of our last conversation was a fight. So that echoes in my mind all the time, and even if I'm angry, that pops in my mind, and I'm like, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Just apologize, admit you're wrong, because it's not worth living with the guilt of, you know, an argument or something mean you said the rest of your life if something would happen to your spouse.
Yeah. Yeah, all of those things. I think perspective, keeping perspective, and sometimes it takes calling somebody. Like I have some people in my life that I call my dad a lot, and I call my pastor in Massachusetts. He's kind of, I would say, my steady pastor and a good friend, and I have some other close friends that I call, but you know, I call them to get perspective, because sometimes you're being irrational, and sometimes you're being emotional, and sometimes you're having a pity party and or whatever, and I think just keeping perspective, and that's in big events and small events, and if like sometimes things are not a big deal, you know, and it's hard to say that, and you can't say it to each other because it just makes it worse, but sometimes things are not that big of a deal, and
But
you
they
just
feel
have
like
to,
a big deal
yeah. So it was in Massachusetts, we got a lot of snow, right? And I got into a bad habit of taking our snow shovel and scraping the top of the car, and what I would do is we got enough snow to where I'd go about 4 inches up from the top and kind of like lop it off. Hannah did that once, and I didn't know it, and the snow melted, and one day I was looking down from our apartment, and I noticed these, like, it looked like
That was a big white scrape on the
like an
top of the car.
EKG. It was just like scratches all over the top of the car, and I knew instantly what she did, but I tried to play
I was
it
trying
off.
to be nice and
Yeah,
shovel the top of the car.
I'm trying to play it off like, you know, I didn't know, but I knew exactly what she
Yeah,
did.
and I was like, you see that big old white scrape on top of the car?
Yeah.
I did that.
Yeah, there's a difference in like being careless and like she was trying to do a good thing, and so it's hard for me to be mad. It's just life, right? So.
And there's such thing as touch-up paint.
And she's worth way more to me than like a car. So, just perspective. Do we have cute nicknames for each other?
I call him Joel and I call him Babe. And I call him Daddy. Well, I shouldn't clip that. That was too personal. Because of Lenora.
Yeah, it's funny because you do have to. As funny as that is, she does have to call me Daddy, and I have to call her Mommy sometimes because.
It's so weird. I would not call him that for the long. So yeah, I guess we do have a weird nickname for each other, and it's that because I was calling him Joel because I was like, I refuse to call you Daddy because that makes me feel really uncomfortable.
It is weird.
So I started calling him Daddy for the sake of our daughter because she started calling him Joel or Babe, and so I was like, I don't want her to call her Daddy
Babe.
Joel or Babe. Babe was funny, but
That was funny.
not Joel. I have had to start calling him Daddy
It's funny though.
for the sake of our child.
Right. How did he propose? Spill all the details. It sounds like it's to you.
You
so.
can talk about the prep.
night and
Come here.
that was kind of. So how did he propose? Spill all the details. So Hannah had to leave to take care of the baby. So I will take over for a second. So I'm not very creative, I gotta be honest. This was probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my entire life. It was hard. In my head, it was gonna be like this grand thing, but I kind of wanted to keep it simple and I don't want to say elegant, but like I didn't want to make a huge deal out of it. And frankly, I didn't have a ton of money either, so kind of a mix of all those things, my lack of creativity, my lack of money. Hannah's not really me, I guess, and so, and then some of it was timing. You know, we had to do it when we were together physically, and so we went to the Broadmoor. It was Parents' Weekend at the Air Force Academy my senior year, so it would have been the end of August 2012, and we went to the Broadmoor. We did dinner up on the top floor of the super fancy restaurant. The most expensive dinner I've ever had in my entire life. It was good. There was some like live music. It was like just a classical pianist in the background. It was pretty cool. Some good ambiance, some good lighting. And then after that, we just took a walk. I mean, she knew. My dad is so funny because, you know, I don't regret it, and like I wouldn't have told him any different. But my dad took pictures of us before and was like, "You guys are gonna like capture this moment, like, you know," and like, you know, and I was like, "Thanks, Dad. You know, you're like she totally knows," which she knew anyways, but and I think everyone knew, but. Yeah, so it wasn't really much of a surprise per se, and we already knew we were gonna get married, and the timing, like it had to happen. So, but anyways, we did dinner. We walked outside, and there's like a little lake pond thing out behind the Broadmoor Resort, and there's like a bridge. We walked. We sat down on a bench, and I was like scouting in my head. I was like, "Where am I gonna do this?" You know. And I was kind of getting impatient. And I could feel I had a suit on, and I had the ring in my chest pocket, and so I could feel it in there, and I was like, "Oh man, how am I gonna do this?" And I almost did it there, and I was like, "No, you know, I gotta wait." So we walked across this bridge, and we were on the bridge. That's when I proposed. There's like lights everywhere and like swans. It was pretty cool. It turned out really good, but it was funny because I got on my knee, and I felt like I was on there for forever. I mean, it was kind of ridiculous in my head, and I know it was probably like 4 seconds. But it felt like 40 minutes. It was insane. And she's back. So we're enjoying the fountains, and they were all lit up, but she was staring off at those, and I felt like I was on my knee forever, and I was so nervous. And I was also like, I'm gonna drop this ring in the water. That was my first thought. The second one was like, will she look at me? You know? And then when she finally looked at me, that's when I popped the question, and I was so nervous, and I could barely talk. But I got the words out, and she said yes. And she kind of cried, and we hugged, and she was all shaky, and I was all shaky. Some of your favorite date night ideas? We have a lot of ideas.
Yeah, they just never happen.
They never happen, yeah.
I think bowling is fun.
Anything competitive is fun, because I
lose all the time, so I'm like,
it depends on what it
lose.
is. Hannah beats me at any word-related game. Scrabble, Words with Friends, she's undefeated. And when we first started playing together, she would say that, she was like, "Oh, you're gonna beat me. You have
He
a big
knows more
vocabulary.
words than I do.
You're way smarter than me," and I've never beat her. Literally never beat her in those games. So I think like games, anything competitive, if you can handle it. I think group dates
Miniature
can be
golf,
fun.
yeah. Group dates are really fun. We actually used to hang out with another couple a lot, and we would, I don't know if they were really considered date nights, but we would go watch plays together, and that was really fun. Going to watch a live play is really cool. Out to dinner, that's always a good one. A nice walk. I think if it's a nice evening, enjoy the weather, like go out and walk along a lake or something like that. It's a lot of fun. Alright, so due to the mass of questions, we are going to do a part 2 video. So this will be a part 1 video, and then we will finish the other questions on a second video. I hope you guys enjoyed this Q&A with my husband Joel. It's been a lot of fun, and definitely stay tuned for that second video.